This is a story in which Jesus and his friends go for a hike. The three friends are John and James and Peter. They are Jesus' oldest friends, his best friends, or at least they are his first friends since he came out of the Jordan and heard the voice that changed everything. The voice from heaven that said, "This is my son, the beloved, listen to him." John and James and Peter are the first ones whom he called. Ever since then, they have walked across the land from sea to desert to forest to farmland to city. As they have walked, Jesus has healed people and told stories and fed people and cast out demons. Today, they are at the bottom of a mountain, at the base of a mountain. And Jesus says, today we are walking up. And so they begin walking. This is how it is with Jesus. When Jesus says it is time to go. You drop your fishing net, whether it be metaphorical or in the case of John and James and Peter, whether it be very wet and very real, and you start walking. Jesus' call is always for right now. The four of them climb up, and notwithstanding all of the walking that they have done, they are in excellent shape, and they have the added bonus of being young, all of them. It's a hard climb. Their hearts are thumping in their chests. They are breathing hard. With every step, the world gets a little quieter. There are their friends receding below them, civilization receding below them, and simultaneously the world getting bigger, the horizon receding further away. Maybe they brought water with them, and maybe they stop to let their breathing and their hearts slow for a while, passing the water skin around between them, gazing out at the enormity of the view. Maybe they talk as they do so, or maybe they don't. Maybe there are no words that are worthy of the enormity of what they are gazing upon. All of these maybes done, they put away the water skin and resume walking up, up, up. Eventually, they go past the tree line. This is the place where the vegetation ends and the rock and the wind begins. They're out into the place where you squint in the sun, but the sun does not stop you from being cold. Up further they go, getting ever closer to the summit. And then, eventually, they're there at the top. They look around at each other. They look at the majesty of creation. They look around in wonder. Centuries after this moment, an anthropologist will be interviewed in a documentary. And he will say that for our ancestors, for people like John and James and Peter and Jesus, and for billions of others, that they lived in a malleable and a permeable world. Malleable means that for most of the people who came before us, categories were not as fixed as they tend to be for us. It was possible to move from one category to another and then back again. If you have seen images from an ancient cave where there are drawings on the wall, you may have seen an image of a person who is also an ox or a bull. It was possible to be both things at once. It was possible to move between these categories, and this did not startle or confuse people. Perhaps we are recapturing some of that malleability today when we speak of being non-binary or fluid. Jesus and John and James and Peter live in a non-binary world, a fluid world, a both and world, a malleable world. And permeable Permeable probably has some super fancy dictionary definition, but for the purposes of our conversation, it actually means something really simple. Permeable means that God isn't somewhere else, that the divine is not somewhere else. It means that as you walk through the world, you trip over miracles. In a permeable world, a friend will tell you that they encountered a bush that was on fire and yet was not consumed. And you will not think that your friend is nuts. You will not think that they are making things up. You will say, yes, because that's the sort of thing that happens. In a permeable world, a man might walk on the water of a lake. Someone may take a finite amount of food and turn it into an infinite amount of food. Jesus might be murdered by the state, and yet you would encounter him and have conversation with him and eat with him and walk with him. Malleability and permeability, by the way, exist to this day. It's just that by and large, we've lost the vocabulary for talking about them. One of the privileges of my job is that people tell me things. When I'm having a visit with someone and we're alone, it's not uncommon for someone in a hushed voice to say, "You'll never believe this, but..." And then they will talk about this extraordinary mystical experience they've had, this encounter with God, this encounter with another world, this realization that permeability remains. We don't talk about it because, well, we don't have that vocabulary, and we're afraid our friends are going to think that we're crazy. Or worse than that, we're afraid that we're going to share something, one of the holiest experiences of our lives with a friend, and they're going to respond by trivializing it, by dismissing it, by saying, "That's a thing you made up." The friends are alone on the mountaintop, 4 of them looking around in wonder in a malleable and a permeable world. And Jesus' malleability manifests now as he begins to shine. Jesus' doctrine tells us is fully human and fully divine. And in this moment, these two things intersect before the friend's eyes. He shines. He is still their friend. They still recognize him, but at the same time, they're barely able to look at him. They squint at the brightness. They look at him through their fingers, barely able to gaze upon him. He's turned into the sun, not the S-O-N, although he remains that, but the S-U-N. He shines with this intensity, and they make this folksy observation. I don't know if they say it out loud or if it's just in their heads, but they say, Jesus, in this moment, his clothes, they're shining so much that no matter how good you were at bleaching, you could never make them shine like that. No matter how much skill you have with OxyClean, you could never make his clothes shine like that. And the permeability is here too. Elijah and Moses, who long ago ascended up into heaven, are there with the shining Jesus. They are talking with him. Do the 3 friends hear what they're saying? Peter feels like he needs to say something to mark this moment. And so he blurts out, "I know, I'll build houses for us and we can stay here forever." They don't know what to say because they are terrified. And then the terror and the wonder and the awe, it continues. There's a cloud that appears over the mountaintop, and that same voice that was there at the Jordan, this is a moment of fearful symmetry, says the same words. "This is my son, the beloved, listen to him." And then it is at an end. Elijah and Moses are gone, and Jesus shines no more. Or no, that's not right. It's not true that Jesus shines no more. The friends, John and James and Peter, are able to look at Jesus again. But what they realize now in the mountaintop is that he was always shining. And now they see it clearly. And that's almost the end of the story. The end of the story about the hike with Jesus and his friends. They walk back down the mountain, and as they do, there's an epilogue. And Jesus says to the three friends, "Hey, you guys, don't tell anyone about this." Why? This is an instruction that has confused a lot of scholars. A lot of scholarly ink has been spilled over this instruction. What does Jesus mean? Why is he saying don't tell anyone? And maybe there's a really mysterious or complicated explanation. But maybe there's just a really simple one. Maybe this experience of seeing Jesus shining, this experience of going to the mountaintop and witnessing the malleable and the permeable intersect, maybe this is something you can't be told about, at least not in a way that's going to make any sense. Maybe if the transfiguration, the shining of Jesus is something that you are going to integrate into your life, into your heart, maybe you have to climb the mountain and see for yourself.